All right, guys, welcome to the Sam Hunter podcast. Today we have got Jordan Crump. Um, at Instagram, you can follow him at jchrisHunts and also on YouTube at SE Archer. And again, that's jchrisHunts on Instagram and SE Archer on YouTube. He's had an incredible Georgia season, which we're going to get into. A dream season, 144-inch stud early season, moving to a 155-inch drop time buck, super cool looking buck that happened later in the season we'll get to. And then you also had a third buck, but I know that was a different state. What state were you in for that one?
That was in Ohio, and that one was actually second. The My second tag in Georgia was actually the last one, but they both came in November.
Awesome, man. Well, I can't wait to get into that one too. Ohio, that's a great place to hunt. I haven't deer hunted that state myself, so I know we're
Oh
gonna
yeah.
love that story. And just starting out, um, what got you into hunting in the beginning?
So I come from a big hunting family. All my uncles hunted, my dad did, so they kind of brought me into the ropes of it. Just growing up, I remember just watching them at the skinning rack and seeing them, going hunting and bringing deer to the skinning rack. So it was kind of like, man, with my mom, got that threshold where she was like, kind of, I could go with them. I mean, it was just on from there. So, I mean, since like having a small BB gun, like a Red Ryder, shooting loves, and then just finally being able to go hunting with them. And man, I was hooked since then. I think probably shot my first deer when I was 12 with a 30-30, and kind of just moved up from there. But yeah, like my uncles were just, I mean, big outdoors, and that's rifles and archery equipments. Kind of learned the ropes from them, and man, they kind of ignited my passion in the sport. And it's just, I mean, what 20 something years later, I mean, I'm still on fire for it. So I kind of attribute it to them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And did you guys mainly go on, family land, public, a little bit of both?
So I grew up in Jackson, Mississippi, and my family had a pretty large tract of land there. And I mean, just kind of looking back, dream scenario, because there were a lot of guys who farmed around us, and they were like everybody knew each other. It was just kind of that kind of area where it was just like, oh, the Crumps are good. So all the land that like touched us, like, I was good. Like I didn't have to worry about fences or anything like that. Like I mean, for maybe roughly like 800 acres. Um,
Man.
so I mean, growing up, it was just kind of like, just go out there and we knew we were good. But yeah, that, and then we kind of did a little bit of the kind of city spots too. Like I had spots that were behind schools, kind of smaller properties. So we did a mixed bag of just, I mean, all kind of stuff like Delta, big farmland. So I kind of got a big variety at a young age with just like, the access to kind of stuff we had permission to hunt. So kind of mixed bag of, opportunities.
Right, and that's pretty cool that even at a young age, you kinda got both worlds. I know a lot of people, um, don't get that until they're older. Maybe they started out, in the big woods and then tried some different things, or they started in a more suburban setting and moved to the big wood.
Mhm.
But to have that at a young age, both worlds, I feel like that's gotta be a pretty good deal just to very quickly learn the mindset of deer and figure out how they are and the universal parts. Like obviously deer are deer, but there's certain
Right.
things they do in big woods and certain things they do in suburban areas. And they can be just as tough in both settings, but to kind of see, big picture what they do in both from a young age, that had to be pretty helpful, I would guess.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially, I mean, transitioning to moving to Georgia and just kind of seeing, what was going on with the Atlanta landscape. It was kind of like, okay, it wasn't like too foreign. You know what I mean? Going to, smaller properties and figuring out, what I mean, how do I get the deer to this X? You know what I mean? I don't have permission to hunt him, all where he is. I can't really like, kind of game plan on trying to, get to where he is, find the bedding. Like if you don't have the permission to where he's bedding or where he's feeding or where, what I mean, routes, it's like you got to hunt what you have. So that was something that I think I did, I already kind of have experience with knowing, kind of being handicapped in a sense and not being able to, kind of move as much as you would like to when you're hunting like bigger tracks.
Right. Mississippi being another southern state, I know there's going to be a lot of similarities there, but when you came to Georgia, was there anything like a learning curve or anything that was stood out to you as being really different? Or was it pretty much a similar feel with the terrain and the types of features that you were seeing?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think when I first moved to Georgia, I think the biggest thing I can say that changed was just like my mindset. Like it's no secret like the caliber of genetics that are around just Georgia in general. I don't even have to say Atlanta. I mean, Georgia has some slammer genetics. I mean, in all kind of counties. And if you look at like, the county list and just see like north to south, there's just some crazy deer going down. Like I saw you interview the guy who killed a 200 deer, in South Georgia. I mean, stuff like that is just like I'm not even surprised. You know what I mean?
I know that
Um,
that was crazy, but it's true. I mean, that's the most southern part of Georgia you can get. And I've even seen in recent years really big bucks up in the North Georgia mountains. I know I've heard that it's a little bit tougher up there, but I've still seen some
mhm,
really big bucks even up there. I'm like, man, from the most northern point to the most southern point, everywhere in between, there's little pockets in Georgia where it's just there's pretty good genetics.
right. But to kind of I mean, circle back and answer your question. I think when I moved to Georgia, like, I always had that dream of just wanting to shoot, a really big deer, like the buck of your dreams. You know what I mean? And kind of like just set goals of, trying to shoot a big one, trying to shoot a big one. You know what I mean? Not kind of looking at what anybody else is doing, just setting personal goals that you would be, proud to achieve. And just seeing kind of the opportunities that Georgia presented. And I think the reality of being able to, I'm just going to say door knocking, you know what I mean? And the mindset of you can really get permission to hunt anywhere that you want if you're willing to speak to someone and have a conversation. And I think that right there has kind of like been the biggest game changer from like Mississippi to here because when I was in Mississippi, I didn't have that. I kind of hunted like this is my aunt's land or this is my uncle's land. But moving here, it's kind of like this is where the deer that I want to kill is. And now I have the tools to get access to hunt him. And I think that's probably the biggest like game changer from moving to Mississippi to Georgia is kind of like been a game changer for me personally and like what caliber of deer that I want to pursue or just I mean what hunting permission I want to hunt. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think door knocking, it really is such a big thing and so important, really wherever you're at, but especially in Georgia too. We have some family land out in Northwest Georgia. And when I first started, my cousin took me, that's where I started. And I thought, well, this is where I hunt. My
Mm,
vision was very like limited, like this is it. And then it branched out to I went to public a couple times. Like, okay, well, there's also all this. And then seeing some other things a lot out there about door knocking, I was like, it didn't really seem like my cup of tea at first.
yeah.
I'm more of an introverted person, even though I do a podcast and stuff like this. That's just naturally how I am. And I'm like, I don't know about that. And then there was something about the rush of it. It was kind of similar to hunting. Like when a big buck walks up and you get that adrenaline pumping, that same kind of feeling whenever I'd pull up to a house and be like, here we go. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's a long driveway and you're like, why am I doing this to myself? You feel like you're going to freak them out. But that same adrenaline rush you get, I kind of started to feed off that and enjoy that. And then that opened up a whole world of things from there. Even my brother, he's a similar way. Like that's not really his thing to go do that. And this year,
Mm,
for the first time, he had a lease and I think it was a couple hours out and he had a lot going on with work stuff. And some things happened where guys transferred and he all of a sudden had way more. He was on call a lot. He was kind of the guy, and he was like, "Wow, I just spent this money on this lease. Like, what am I going to do?" And I was like, "You're in a pretty good area. You can knock on some doors over there." He's like, "I don't know." And then he started doing it, and sure enough, he got a couple of, I mean, like big tracks.
yeah.
Not in total suburbia, but kind of in an in between. And he
Mm,
got some really big tracks, and now I think he's hooked on that too. So you're right. That's a major factor. Um, here in Georgia and really anywhere you're at. And kind of switching up a little bit, I'm getting a little bit of the itch right now. I've been kind of sad that deer season here, even our extended archery, it's coming to a close here. And
oh yeah.
um,
Sad times.
it's a sad time for sure. And I was just thinking, like, okay, well, we got turkey coming up. We got fishing
Mm,
coming up. And I noticed, on your Insta, you've been doing some stuff with fishing and lures. So we're going to go more into your buck stories. But really quick, I did want to hear, what got you into that? How long have you been doing that? Because that's pretty cool that you're making your own lures, you're painting them, you're doing all the stuff. If you just want to explain kind of how you do that and what got you into that, and then a little bit of your fishing passion too.
um, So probably to just start out on the fishing tip. Man, again, like I grew up in the country where it was like what you have there is like what you do. So it's like from every kind of hunting. I mean, from small game, squirrels to rabbit to deer, we did that, and from brim to crappie to catfish to bass. So my uncle is, I mean, still one of my uncles is like super passionate about hunting. And one of my uncles is super passionate about bass fishing, and he still like fishing maybe, I don't know, 40 plus tournaments to this day in Mississippi, Ross Barnett Reservoir. Like he gets to it. So I think I fall like right in the middle of both of them. Like I've grabbed some stuff from this uncle and grabbed some stuff from that one. And I think I'm kind of like the melting pot of both. Like for me, like
Oh,
fishing is what kind of gets me through the sadness of I think what's my biggest passion, which is whitetail deer hunting.
Right.
And it kind of gives me that next thing to still stay outside, still, have challenges, still just be in nature. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what fishing does for me. As far as like the lures, that's kind of like a side venture that I just kind of got in. Last year I'll just say I kind of just got into swim bait fishing, and man, my mind is just blown with just like the caliber of bass that you can catch when you start throwing bigger lures. That's something that I just got into last year. I just bought my first like live bait last year. And I fished a tournament last year and caught like two sixes, like back to back, and won that tournament on a glide bait. And then basically, I had another glide bait that was a Spro Trash ad, and I was like, man, I'm gonna paint this the same color as that one that I won the tournament on. So that's basically what I was doing. But that's kind of like side venture. I'm not a lure painter at all by any means. That's actually the first one I've ever done. So I can't even claim
Well, man,
I'm
I mean,
extremely novice in that area.
yeah, well, it was impressive to me because I mean, I love bass fishing, but I feel like I have so much to learn there. It's a similar thing for me. Like it gets me through the sadness of deer season being over and all that stuff.
Mm,
But I'm pretty. I don't have a good repertoire of stuff to use. Like I'm pretty predictable. Like I go with the swim Cinco over and over. I do the tube worm. Those are kind of my two go-tos. 90% of the time, I'm throwing those two things, and then
yeah.
10% I'll experiment with some kind of like chatterbait or a topwater or something or a jig. But like for the most part, I'm just throwing. I mean, so many casts all day. I'll throw that tube worm and swim Cinco, and so I'd like to get a little more, adventurous and try some more things. And that was just
Yeah.
cool. Like it looked like good bait you were using, and it was cool how you were, painting it and doing all the stuff yourself.
I surprised myself to be honest. Like I didn't think it was gonna come out that good, but I was pretty impressed with it. But like I said, it's just some trial and error, something that I just tried, and I guess it just came out good. And it was kind of like a basic style, like it was basically like white and then a little blue on the back and the face. So I was like, okay, this isn't too difficult. It's not like real intricate, you know what I
Right.
mean, design. So yeah, a good first one to start with. It wasn't too difficult to paint.
Yeah, that's awesome. And going from there, I do want to go into whitetail and the season you've had, and really at the start of it all, setup, like setting up for beginning of season, even though we're ending right now. But I think what made me think of that is the other day, I know we had talked to, there was a lot going on with the ice storm coming in and just
Right.
a lot of things going on. But for me, my first thought was, crap, I got to go get some blinds out of there because I was worried it was going to be even worse than it was and that it was going to tear them down and, tear a bunch of blinds. And already I invested a lot in blinds for whatever reason the past couple years. I always hunted up high and I still do a little bit, but something about blinds lately, just they're quick. I do set them up really early so that deer are used to them. Like I do it from very beginning of summer, so they have all summer to get used to it. And I try to put it in a spot where it's brushed in pretty well. But um, I did have for the first time, a monster pine tree at the beginning of summer, like crush one of my brand new blinds, and it went like right down the middle of it. And it was actually a spot that my wife and I, we call it the venison factory, just because there's so many deer there. And there's a couple big bucks, but more so it was just a spot where I was like, this is a good permission for like taking my wife and kids, and getting my younger son on his first year, which happened, and all that kind of stuff. And it was scary to see that this monster pine tree fell literally, it crushed both chairs that we would have been in. So it was kind of
Yeah.
terrifying. And I'm like, man, when I first started getting into this blind thing, more so than being up high, I'm like, hey, this is even safer. Like, that's another bonus. Like, I'm safe now. And then that happened. I'm like, man, there is no safe, I guess, in hunting. You can't get away from some aspect of danger. But then I noticed, started looking more into like the pine beetles, and I noticed that there was a bunch of holes in that tree. And then I started looking around at more like, oh gosh, this place is loaded with them. So it's a little sketchy, but yeah, it just got me thinking. Like when I went in to take down all those blinds right before all the ice stuff, I just had a flashback to like the beginning of season, going out there, setting all these up, my mentality, like what I wanted to accomplish, the targets I had in my head, and I'm a very sentimental, like nostalgic person, so I got chills. I was like, man, this is crazy. Like I can't believe it's over or it's ending now. And it was an incredible season, my favorite and best so far. And I get the sense that for you it was as well. And I was just like, man, I can't believe this is in, like it feels like I was just setting this up and now I'm taking it down. So for you, I was just curious what goes into your, and for our listeners, like what goes into your um setup each year? Like are you mainly doing like lock-ons, regular tree stands, blinds, a mixture of all of that? Are you feeding pretty heavy through the summer? Are what's kind of your go-to in the summer for like setting everything up, or and also when do you start setting up?
Man, that's crazy hearing you say that because I share like two of those main sentiments on just like like the nostalgia of seeming like I put a video together the other day and like made a short, and I was just like, man, it's like it flew by so fast. Just seeing like it was just I was just looking at Velvet in the early season. You know what I mean? Just thinking like, oh, it's gone. And so but going to a setup. So I am family man. I have a 3-year-old who's about to be 4. I have a wife and I have a full-time job. So, but I work basically 4:30 and then 12:30 a.m. So I have a lot of time from, that morning to that evening to kind of put stuff together. So my kind of mindset on it is like, man, I do as much as I can early, as I can. And I think I share the same thing. Like I want deer to be able to look at that like numerous times, for month, not too far in advance, but like minimum like a month in advance. I want them to see like that lock on sitting there. You know what I mean? That just helps. Like once you're in it, they're not looking up at it if they even were, to begin with.
Right.
But as far as like setup, like I kind of have a base of stuff that I like to do as far as like setups. But I think like the one of the most important things in like deer hunting that I found is just like being versatile and being able to like have a plan A, but not like if the deer is telling you something different, you need to do something different. Like scratch that plan A. You know what I mean? Even if that's your base or what you believe in, it's like the deer is telling you that's not going to work that way. Like go a different direction. That being said, I shot my first buck, actually what I call the Velvet 10 out of a ground blind this year, and that's my first year that I've shot from a ground blind.
Oh wow.
So and bought it actually last year, but this permission that I had, it's just like it's no trees. They were cutting like man, they cut like almost all the trees off the power line. It's like this is the only place that I can potentially like hunt this deer legally where I can make it work, and I still be concealed. So I did that. Lock-ons, hunted some out of the saddle. So I'm kind of, man, whatever works. Like,
Right.
I'm kind of open to trying, almost anything. You know what I mean? And some stuff, kind of like you say, isn't my cup of tea, but I definitely try. You know what I mean? I'm open to trying, new strategies, new tactics, but lock-on is probably, I'll say, my main, like number one go-to as far as like setting up for whitetails, like putting it up early, having it set on a deer that I know I want to hunt and just letting it soak.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I've seen a lot. I mean, that's a big thing right now is lock-ons, and weirdly, that's the one route I haven't gone yet. But the route I've been thinking more and more like I need to get into that and get some of those. I've done tree stands, some climber, a lot of blinds lately, like I've said. But the climber situation, I don't want to offend. I know a lot of people use climbers and have great success with them. I think I just got the wrong one. But the one I had, it was so heavy. And, I guess I also took it to a place where I have almost at the time, I had my worst access. Since then, I got a backdoor permission where I could enter it from a different way. But at the time, I had to enter from one way and it'd go a long way back there, across a creek, steep ditches. And that climber was so heavy and it was just banging everything, like, I mean, it was a nightmare. By the time I got to the tree, I'm drenched in sweat,
Drenched in sweat.
which I'm not used to. I'm normally pretty, like stealthy. I get in quietly. I don't have to exert a lot of energy, especially when I have a blind or a natural tree stand set up. So pretty quickly, fell out of love with the whole climber thing. My brother still does it, and he's had good success with it. But the lock-ons look like a pretty good way to go. Um, but also, so transitioning from there, before we get into these specific stories of these deer, and just to double check, you said you still have these deer with you, is that right?
Oh yeah, yeah, they're all
Awesome.
sitting here.
Well, as we go through these stories, we'll let you do a little show and tell there. Our viewers love that, and I love seeing these deer myself. But before we even go into that, you had a very unique and just cool opportunity that not a lot of people can say they've had. And you got to go, I know it was last season.
Yeah,
Seek One did a little something different where they kind of had some new faces involved in the mix, and there were competitions. It was a really cool idea. Um, and you got to be a part of that, and I remember watching that. Like, your personality shut out pretty quick to me, that you were just kind of that, like, you were kind of like a calm confidence, which was cool to see. um Kind of like just mellow, calm, and control, but you still have that drive, and you can see that. And even watching, like, obviously your own videos and your own channel, you can really see that drive and how much you want it, and you put out to, like, work hard to go after these deer. But going into this experience, like, how did that kind of come about for you? What was the experience like? Did everything flow kind of natural? Like, I feel like that'd be really cool, but also come with a lot of new things, and you're kind of competing with other people. And how did that all sort of feel? What was your mindset last season before we get into this season and going through that whole experience?
Yeah, so the first I could say is, man, I've been probably a big fan of the Sequin guys for maybe about 8 years now. I mean, I was one of the guys like I'm watching like Zeus, Charlie, Napoleon, all their like earlier videos. Like I'm watching like, 6, 7 times a piece over and over. So really learned a lot from those guys and really drew a lot of inspiration from them and learned a lot of stuff that I've implemented in the way that I hunt. Because I mean, they're hunting the same, areas and deer that I'm hunting. You know what I mean? As far as, so I started filming for my channel, I'll say in 2020. And definitely, well, if I had to say, I'd say kind of pretty novice filming. Like some of it I shot on my phone, some of it, a lot of it wasn't the best gear. It wasn't the best well put together. And then from every year, just kind of like built on what I was doing, you know what I mean? Kind of got more confidence in the equipment that I was using. So kind of fast forward, like you said, Sequin wanted to do something new. They're getting to a point with their company that they wanted to put some new faces in front of the camera, kind of mix it up. Guys are getting older, guys are having, kids getting married, and it's just like you want to keep, putting out more videos, and you have to have, more new faces. So
Right.
it was, I'll say this, I mean, the opportunity of a lifetime. Like, I mean, those guys, I believe, if you had to ask me, like, have one of the best hunting YouTubes out there that I've seen. And that's
Oh,
from a caliber of a deer standpoint, storytelling, obviously their faith in the way that they carry themselves with their brand and down to the video because I'm a video geek. Camera and stuff like that, like I'm all on that, so I kind of watch it from that perspective as well. So basically, to get into how I kind of got in the mix of that, I only really had one mutual friend, which was Griffin, that I knew kind of leading into that. I kind of met a few of the other guys, just kind of like, at a meet and greet, stuff like that, but nothing really personal or anything like that. But I introduced myself to Lee again. What's that? Maybe 2 years ago, and he was like, "Man, like I I like," and I showed him my stuff, and he's like, "Man, I watch your videos, like I like them," and I'm kind of like, kind of like, whoa, like was not expecting that. That's like a high compliment, you know what I mean,
yeah,
coming from
for
him.
sure.
He was like, "Man, we got to get you involved in Dode." He was like, "Man, keep up with Griffin, and we'll try to get you involved." So that kind of got the ball rolling into the season where they wanted to kind of do some stuff, and they kind of brought all the guys in that they kind of were looking at, and kind of sat us down and said, "Man, we're trying to shake some things up this season. Is let's try it out for a year and see how it goes." So did that, and like I said, man, awesome experience. And like you talked about the challenges of kind of doing something different, man, a lot of it was like it didn't really feel too different from a standpoint of it was actually easier to have like a cameraman. Then I it's no secret I do a lot of self filming. But as far as like everything else, it was like it wasn't much to think about because it's like it's still just deer hunting. You know what I mean? You're just kind of doing it with obviously on Sequan's platform. But and ultimately just obviously I'm not filming with them this year. And I'll just tell you what kind of went into that decision was like after we kind of went through the year, it was like, man, like going back to like I'm a family man. I have a kid, I have a wife, and even for my own brand, it's like I don't see myself being able to go full time and still be there for my family in the ways that I need to. So that was kind of like the top tier of like, um, this probably isn't going to work for me long term. And even with what I'm doing with my current YouTube channel, like even for any dollar amount of money, I'm like, my family is more important. So it's like if that's take too much strain from me being there for my family and being making sure they're taken care of as far as like time that they need from me, it's like this needs to sit to the side for right now. So obviously there were some other things that kind of went into factor, but that's kind of what came to the decision of it. And like I said, I'm still cool with those guys, still talk to them, still went to Doe Day. But ultimately, they have a business to run, you know what I mean? And they're still have some really great guys. Jason still heavily involved with it. Jason, Griffin, and Alex. So, like I said, I don't have anything but good things to say about those guys. And it was, like I said, opportunity of a lifetime to be able to film with them. Like I said, and what I believe is, I mean, one of the best hunting YouTubes out there.
For sure. And when you were going through some of those like fun competitions, whether it's, let's shoot for whatever, and you're having to shoot against the other guys and that kind of thing, was it like, did it feel high pressure in the moment, or was it just kind of like this is all fun and just what was sort of the mentality between you and the other guys in those kind of moments?
I think a lot of it kind of felt more fun. Like I didn't really put too much pressure on. most of the stuff, but I'm a like big competitor. Like I'm super competitive. So as far as like the shooting stuff, like of course I have that chip on my shoulder, like, yeah, I want to win this. You know what I mean? So of course
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
there. But as far as like if you don't shoot well or if you don't, it's like it's not
Yeah,
really big deal. It's just, I mean, we're taking two shots. You know what I mean? So you want to do well, but it's not really too much pressure, really.
yeah. And, this is a really interesting point, kind of using this as the bridge to your current season. Because you've had a insane season. And before because I said it earlier, but I don't really know, so I'm gonna ask you, was this your best season ever so far? Or, I mean, have they all been pretty, like, consistent to that, or what was the story for you?
No, this was hands down the best season I've ever had. I mean, on a level of just like, you know, I just had to like look up and be like, you know what I mean? This just isn't all me. Even the way that it came down to like, man, I probably killed three bucks in 11 sits. And that's not to say that a lot of work goes into it because while I say I only sat 11 times, I probably hung 17 sets this year, and probably more.
Mhm.
So it's like the work of like putting stuff in the right place, like setting up for this deer and not working out, moving to this deer, changing targets, like all of that you probably don't see. I mean, it's a lot that goes into it, and these were just kind of the ones that I had the opportunity on.
Right. And yeah, because it seemed like a dynamite just looking at the videos, it seemed like a dynamite season from the outside, and it obviously was, so I didn't know if that was, like a breakthrough season, but it's just incredible. And, um, going back, kinda like I said, the bridge from last year to this year, do you think there's anything you sort of I mean, you've been hunting since a young age, you've hunted big woods and, like, more suburban type territories from a young age, you said, so you already got
Mhm.
that feel. But was there anything you sort of picked up on from Lee or Seek One where you're like, it kinda made that bridge into just helping you better some things, like, "Oh, I do that a little differently, let me try that," or was it pretty consistent with what you were already doing? What was kinda your feel on that?
Feel really bad to say no. So I'm gonna kind of elaborate a little bit before I just go straight into that answer and just say flat out no. Um, so I feel like I'll say this, as far as from a searching standpoint and looking for the caliber of deer that I wanted to kind of shoot, which was like just kind of throw out. I mean, score isn't everything. Like I'm big on like age. Like man, if I know like a 5, 6.5 year old deer, it's like even if he's 130, 120, it's like that's a trophy, and that's how I was raised. You know what I mean? Like if you are able to get a 5.5 year old buck or older in front of you, like that is accomplishing something with archery equipment, regardless of what's on his head. That's kind of how I was raised, and that's kind of my mindset looking into it. But I'll say like the past two seasons, I think have been a breakthrough as far as like getting into the areas with the best genetics that are closer to where I live at, where I've been placed, that makes sense for my family to reach it. I'm not flying an hour and 30 minutes across town, and then I tell my wife, I'm coming. You know what I mean? I'll be there in 2 hours. You know what I mean? Like that's just
Right.
not feasible for me. So finding like the best genetic areas that are realistic for me driving wise, I think is something that over the past couple of years has really come into play for me. And I'll say this. So the past couple of years, I think I've found maybe 2 years ago, at least three or four deer over 140, one over 150. Last year, I think maybe three over in the like 150 range and one 160. And it was like, granted, I didn't kill any of those deer. Let me just say that on top. But I always felt like, I mean, if you're around those deer, it's only a matter of time. If you're finding those deer, you know what I mean, and you have the knowledge to go back with you and you're doing the right things, like you're gonna get a shot at one of those deer. So, and I mean, I put in a ton of work to the point, like I was in November, I think a couple years ago, and I was literally in the stand. I'm not even embarrassed to say it. Like I had tears coming down my face, just like, man, like I'm putting in so much work. Like, why am I not able to get this caliber deer in front of me? You know what I mean? When I'm finding them, I'm getting pictures of them, and it's just not clicking. So when this season happened, it was kind of like finally clicked. I had like so many big deer on my radar that it was just like, I just need to get these deer in front of me. You know what I mean? So it was like the finding part, like the searching and getting in the right areas. Like I feel like for a couple years, I've been in the money on doing that. And it's just like sealing the deal, getting these deer in front of you and closing the deal once they get in bow range.
For sure. And that is super impressive that you said, what was it, 11 sits between these 3 deer that you got?
Yeah.
See, that's incredible, and I feel like that's an area where it's really tough for me to do that mentally, I want to get to a point where I can just, space everything out a little better, but I kind of go hard. And once there's a buck, I try to be as smart about it as I can, but I can't help but kind of just keep going in. And I do think, I'm not going to say that that always works, because I do think this season was weird for me in the sense that the main buck I was going after is kind of like what you were describing earlier. He was an older buck than the bigger buck I ended up getting. I think the one I got was 5, but the one I was after, I know he's older than that. I don't know exactly how old, but he's been mature since I've been after him, and this was my 4th year. It'll be going into my 5th year after him next year, so he's old. Um,
Mhm.
he was bigger a couple years ago, but I think, like, when I got the deer I got this year, which was around mid 150s, a buddy was telling me, "You don't know what you just did," and I was like, and I was so excited, but I'm like, "Man, this is the deer I've been after. I've been after him for 4 years," and he looked at it, he was like, "That's a really mature deer, and he's nice, but the one you just got scores a lot better, right?" And I'm like, in a way, I think subconsciously I knew that, but it didn't even hit me because I just look at that
Yeah.
deer on another like, there's an aura about him because I just all the years going after him, I see him as like a 200, but I know he's not. He might be like, who knows? He could be mid 130s. He could maybe touch 140, but he's not as much. But to me, I mean, it's just that thing of like such a mature animal. But going to what you were saying, like I didn't do the best job of spacing it out and doing it in limited sits. I go hard. So that deer I went after pretty hard. That deer and the one I got originally I found in the same area, and I sat that area so much and I tried different access points. I got different permissions, just as access permissions to get to it, like cut throughs, um, and to the permission that I had for years. And I never saw that deer. I've actually never seen him in person. It's crazy to think. And even the one I got, I'd never seen him in person either. But another permission that I got this year, I'd only sat it once, opening morning of bow, for a completely different deer. I never thought this deer would make it this far over there. And then the one I got showed up there late October, October 27th, and I killed him that day. That was my second sit ever at that property. So
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of merit to the way you approach it and to the way a lot of people do. I struggle to do it, but I do see the merit because that property where I just killed my biggest deer, only 2 sits there. That's it. The property where I was going so hard, that one didn't work out. Um, so I think that takes a lot of restraint. How do you kind of balance that? Like when you want to get in there and go for it, but I know like what are you kind of waiting for? Obviously when and things like that, but how do you kind of space it and know, when to go where you go to keep those sits limited?
I kind of gotta say it with a grain of salt too, because I don't want to say like I'm always this perfectly restrained guy who only goes in at the right time, because that's definitely not me. I definitely had times like I've had seasons where I've logged like tons of sits. I've hunted all the way to January and I still haven't filled a buck tag. You know what I mean? Like I've done it. This season just didn't pan out like that. I mean, just like I put in, well, I don't want to get into that story too deep because I know we're going to get into it later, but it just panned out to where the deer just did what he needed to do and then it was done. And then it's kind of like on to the next one. So it wasn't just like uh, I just kind of held off on the deer in a sense. It was just kind of like once I decided to go after that deer, it just kind of paid out. And like I said, the best season I've ever had, and a lot of seasons it just hadn't panned out like that. But I do think, and I talk to one of my buddies, Jeremy, about it all the time. I look back at the times where I have got shots on mature deer, and I'm like, man, I've killed way more deer where it's like the conditions were right and favor in my favor than I have when I'm trying to force it and the wind's not right, or I blew X amount of deer off going in on my access. Like I kill more when it's just like, man, this wind's right in my face. Or man, like my access was golden. Like I didn't disturb any deer. I got in here undetected. And then I look back and say, like I have more deer when I can say this story than that one. Now granted, I've grinded it out and killed some where I've like, man, I gotta, scent control and all this, but it's like it's way less on this side doing it that way than than the than the other.
Right. And let's go straight into your early season and kind of go from there. This first buck you got, kind of your mindset, but also just like going into that hunt. I know you said that was a new permission. Is that right?
No, I actually had that one for like 2.5 seasons.
I got you. Okay. And this is the one where you used the ground blind, correct?
Right.
Okay. So for this, because I do love early season, but I didn't in the past until I feel like you almost have to have the right pieces of land for early
Yeah.
season. But once November comes, like almost anywhere, I mean, there's been places where there's like no deer, but I put a camera and then like come November, they're going to show up everywhere. you almost have to find those perfect places for early season, but finally finding some of those early season is one of my favorite, like that early bow, and always for years since I've been doing this, late October. I'm not a
Mm.
big it feels weird to say and almost like offensive to the hunting world. I don't know. Like I know everyone loves the rut, but I'm not a big I mean, I get excited for it because I'm just like, you never know. But rut has been, I've never had that magical. For me, it's that early September, like right when bow starts, or late October, and that's kind of where I've been at. But for you, going to that early season where I know it can be really good if you've got the right piece, on that bed to feed pattern, and you've got the big bucks in the area, it can be magical. So for you, how did that sort of lead up? When did you first start getting this deer on camera that you got first? And just kind of proceeded to the preparation and then the hunt for that deer.
Man, I don't want to say like I'm kind of paranoid about September in a sense, but it's almost like I just stack the cards as heavy as I can. Like it's like the more properties that I feel like you have, the more you just have your chances of, okay, there's a deer here. There's a shooter buck here that I want to go after. And potentially he's going to be here before he shifts into his fall range. And it's like there's so many deer that are going to disappear. They're just going to stop showing up. So like I've kind of like just stacked the deck, like as many as I can find and, the ones that stick around, they're still there. That week leading into the season, it's kind of like, okay, what's the big him? And that's kind of how it rolled out for me. It was like the buck that I shot wasn't my first option. The one that I really wanted for that early season, poof, shaded velvet and was gone out of there. And crazily, he just showed back up January, like a couple weeks ago. Hadn't seen that deer since he shaded velvet in
Wow.
September. So, like you said, like you got to have that money property. I think that's really it. Like majority of the properties that I have, September is dead. You're not killing a shooter buck there. You're just not. They're just not there.
Yeah.
Maybe there are does there, or they're just not consistent enough that you'll see them. So I think you're on the money with it. Like the only thing I've found to like combat is just like have a lot of spots and you know what I mean? You hopefully you land on the spot that is just like maybe it's backed up to some kudzu or it's in just somewhere that he wants to be. You know what I mean? During that summer range. 'Cause if it's not, it's tough. They're not traveling too far. They're really tight, and you got to be tight in on them. If you're not, you're just not seeing them. You're probably not gonna get a shot at them in September.
Right. And this feels a little premature, but let's just do it. But before we even get into the full story, if you just want to show off this first buck, this is the one that you got early season, and just kind of go over it with us again, like what he scored, and kind of show him off a little bit to everyone.
Yeah, so it was September 19th. The deer I call the Velvet 10. See if I
Oh
can
man.
sit back far enough. Wide 10, almost had like 24-inch main beams, like
Gosh.
around almost 19 inches inside. So just a really big frame, crazy mass. And I actually missed this deer in full velvet because what I found out, like I'm a huge stickler in saying to shoot your exact hunting setup, like practice with it and make sure you're shooting like your field points. And I thought I did that, but I changed like one aspect of my setup. I changed my fletchings. And the fletchings made the broadheads that I've been using for 2 years shoot different. And I missed this deer like far, like shoo,
Right.
sailed over his back at like 32 yards. And you can still see he has a little bit of his velvet still on him right there,
Oh
which I
man.
think is pretty cool to just
That is
like
cool.
remind me of like yeah, I missed you in full velvet.
That's pretty
So,
cool. Yeah.
really cool deer. And at the time, this was I guess this season, like I said, it was crazy. I kind of went up like this was my biggest. And then I went up and that was my biggest. Then I went up and that was my biggest. So,
Wow. Man.
really, really cool deer. Um, yeah. So
Yeah. That's
that was
that's
him.
that's an awesome looking deer, and it's really cool that even and it's awesome that some of that velvet stayed on there, like you said, for the memorabilia of that. But
Mhm.
really cool that you even had a shot to go because in Georgia, I mean, it can happen, and it happens every year to somebody or some people, but it's tough to still get them in velvet. It seems like clockwork. It's like right before that opener. It's almost like right before they shed the velvet, and you're like, "Oh, man,"
Mhm.
like, because you're seeing that velvet and you just start dreaming, like, "Man, I'd love to take take 'em like that," and then right before it could be a day before, maybe a few, and then they start acting funny, and then the games go from there, but you did have a shot, like you said, and it almost worked out, but, those little changes I know with archery can make a big difference, but take us kinda from there to, shortly after when it all worked out. I know he shed, and then kinda get like, did he start acting totally different or maybe just a little finicky, or he was still pretty consistent to what he had been? How did he sorta react once he shed that velvet?
Yeah. So it's hard to talk about this deer without talking about his age. Like it was a deer that I was like, man. this year is going to be 160 next year. And of course, a lot of my buddies are like, man, you're crazy. Like mid 140s in full velvet, like you're crazy. Like, you know what I mean? That's like an awesome accomplishment. And like I said, there was another book that I kind of had my heart set on, and he kind of poof disappears. Opening day was rolling around, and I was like, man, this full velvet deer with this big frame is just out there every day like clockwork. And I believe this deer is 4.5. And he was like, I'll just say he didn't seem like an incredibly difficult deer to hunt. Like he was like clockwork, like evening. Didn't really show up in the morning that much, but like evenings, like he was there. Like every day leading up, 7 days before the season opened, he was there every single day. Like 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m. He was there in front of my camera. So like I said, yeah, missed him, shot over his back, went through the whole thing of like, man, I don't believe that's me. Like, there's no way I could have missed that deer that far. So went through all the tests of like figuring out, what went wrong. Got that back right, and then I think my so that was like two hunts. On the second hunt, I missed him, and on the fourth hunt, he came back out and I got a shot at him, and then connected. So that's kind of how it went. So like I said, it's pretty quick, in two hunts, got that first shot, and he was still in there that same night after I missed him, he came back, like
Wow.
in
Yeah.
dark. And then he was gone that next day, and I was like, and my buddy was like, he's shedding, bro. So he was gone for like 24 hours, and then the next day he came back in. I mean, just hanging
Wow.
off. And I was like, ah.
Man,
And I
yeah.
was like, man, after like missing him, I was like, man, that's just the coolest story though.
Yeah.
Even though he shared it, I was like, I still want to pursue him and put my first tag on him, and it ended up working out, being able to get him. 'Cause it's just like, man,
Yeah.
the story is just so cool, like, man. And just like I said, just seeing that velvet on is just a reminder of just like it taught me a lesson. You know what I mean?
Right, and there's something about that whole redemption story that's powerful and just so cool to see. And, I know you got him shortly after, so you didn't have a lot of time to see changes, but was he acting any different? Was he still kinda coming back at the same times, like, pretty patternable, or with that velvet switch did a switch go off and he was acting?
He didn't act different, bro. Like he was back in there like somewhere.
I
I
got
mean,
you, yeah.
straight. And that's why I say like he was, like I said, he was back in there the same night. He shedded velvet, was gone maybe, like I said, maybe 12 hours, and then he was back in there. And he daylighted maybe one more time before I hunted him the next time. And I saw some other bucks that came in, and he didn't on that third hunt, but in the fourth one, he gave me an opportunity. But he was outside of maybe like one day, like after he shed it, he was still there like clockwork after that.
Wow. And, going back to kinda like what you said about your schedule and how you kinda laid that out for us, how you're pretty busy in the evenings and nights, like the way your work schedule flows. And so I am curious because I'm even more impressed considering that, how you got that buck early season. Because for me, at least the past couple years, I really transitioned to in September. I just have a rule for myself and it's hard sometimes, but I don't let myself hunt mornings. Like I just hunt evenings. And
Mm.
there's a tracker around here who is a good buddy of mine. He helped me track a few times and we just connected and he's a big like inspiration for me and he helps me out a lot too. I mean, this guy, everything he says, I'll ask him something on a hunt and say this is about to happen. But he's not just like it's based on what I told him, but it always happens. Like every time, to the detail. Some of the weirdest things. But he told me a couple years ago, like, do not hunt the mornings in September. And he told me, and this was like a few years ago, and I did it anyway. And then my target buck, um, he became super regular for like a couple months before he finally got back to normal. And I knew, I'm pretty sure when I walked out early in the morning, I still remember like making out to the blind, like there was just enough that I could tell there was a big deer out in front of me, and I couldn't obviously see, but I'm pretty sure it was him. And that was opening morning, and that totally messed him up for a couple months. And so from then, I've just been like hardcore. I might go in around noon or 11 at the earliest, like late morning, and get set up for a whole evening thing. That's how not like that's the lens I look at September through now. It's like you go in the evenings. Considering you work a lot in the evenings. How are you kinda doing this? Are you able to maneuver your schedule a little bit in September? Do you just go for the mornings and you still have success through it? How do you kinda roll through that?
Man, you don't know how much time I've spent like, I mean, like racking my brain about how to do that. Cause I completely agree. Like evenings are money in September. And the way that I
Yeah.
do it is kind of like, and this is another thing going into the family aspect, like where I work, like we kind of put in our time for the next year in December. So that's another thing that kind of gave me a little like I kind of got to think in advance. Like the Ohio trip that I planned to go there for 7 days, like I picked those days in December. And like opening day, I'm kind of already off Friday, Saturdays. So I already have those evenings. And then I kind of take off on the Monday after opening day because I'm like, if I'm on a big one, I want to hunt that Saturday. I may take off Sunday, go to church, spend time with my family. And then Monday, I want to be right back on them for another evening. And then after that, I kind of roll with the punches of I got to go to work. You know, I don't have evenings
Right.
until Friday comes back around. So that's kind of like I said, it's not the I don't have the best schedule conducive to successfully killing, you know what I mean, in September. It's just not. It's just kind of like it's a toss up, and sometimes it falls in my favor, and most times it doesn't. But
Right.
yeah, I completely agree that like that evening, if I could only hunt evenings in September and I had them with my work schedule, that's what I do. But I also want to say this though, even though that's kind of like the trend or the majority, if a deer is showing me something else, I'm like, don't think I won't switch up and hunt that morning if he's telling me that's how he wants to be hunted. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so I say it with a grain of salt, not to say like I said, my plan A, I'm gonna hunt that evening. But if a deer is showing me like he wants to come in like 9:30 a.m.,
Right.
you know what I
Right.
mean? Best
Mhm.
believe, I'll be there 6:30 and just sit there and wait on you. You know what I mean? To
Yeah.
walk on in there.
Yeah, that's definitely the exception. Because, like I said, the property that I hunted twice this year, where I got my best buck ever, I only hunted that twice. I did hunt it, which is totally against what I said I do, opening morning of bow this September. But the only reason I did that was because there was another buck I was after, and he would only come out. It was like 9, 10, 11 a.m., like really late morning. I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
I can get in there like and get set up and it'll be fine because the main early season places that I like to zero in on, they are out there 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., and then they're out there for like, a couple hours of daylight or so. But it's just almost impossible to get in there in mornings. I was just
Put
curious
them
about
on.
that. Yeah, but so you get this buck. You're already off to the best start. You're getting this mid 140s deer. Super cool story. Still got some velvet on him. I mean, it's already like an amazing start to your season. From there, you said you got the Ohio deer in between. Is that right? Before the other
Yeah, that
Georgia?
was actually November 3rd.
Okay. So like getting into like early, right after that pre-rut stuff. For Ohio, how did this come about? Is this a place you kind of had, permission at a lot, or did you go out in the summer and kind of scope out a new spot, get some permissions up there, or how did you kind of come about hunting in Ohio?
So Ohio is kind of like, I mean, a dream destination. I mean, it's no secret it's one of the best, whitetail states in the country. And I basically have a friend, his name is Dan Wilson, awesome jazz guitarist, and he actually reached out to me. This is maybe like almost 3 years ago now. And over time, we just got really cool, just talking hunting stuff back and forth. And he basically invited me up there. He was like, man, like, love what you're doing. Love your passion for deer. And I think we shared like, some of the same ideals. He was like, man, if you ever want to come up in Ohio, like, I'll kind of show you around. He had access to some farms up there just through like, people that he knows. I kind of went up there and scouted. This was maybe, like I said, about 2 years ago. Scouted, kind of looked at some of the farms, dropped some pins, kind of got to lay the land on some permissions that he had. And these are like, I mean, pretty sizable farms, like over 1,000 acres. So after that, I mean, this is, the Seek One season where the Seek One season was like everything's kind of out the gate. Like we're doing the New City Challenge. Like I'm not going to Ohio, you know what I mean, on the side quest. It's only so much block of time I can set off in November, you know what I mean, where I could be away from my family. In 2 weeks in November, it just wasn't flying. So uh, this next year, like I said, I'm back kind of, filming for myself. It's like, okay, this Ohio trip is on. So this is the first year that I'm going. So blocked off a year. Like I said, my buddy Dan's like I went down there, we were running cameras on, several different permissions. Had maybe on this farm about three uh early season, like three like 150 class deer kind of picked out. They were living there. Like they were on beans. As soon as those beans got cut, they like a mile across the farm. So November, I don't know if you want me to just go full into the story.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. And
So November,
as you're going into it, if you just want to weave in, because this is kind of an interesting dynamic here, like you're hunting the areas you are around here, um, and maybe some of them are smaller tracks, some may be bigger, but like maybe a mix. But then going to big woods and in Ohio, just a whole different world. kind of as you're going through it, translate how that's maybe a different feel or any adjustments you had to make. And obviously, you grew up hunting big woods and small, so just any little things like that that are a little bit different.
I will say, probably my most proudest is the Ohio deer. Is just like being out of state, being on the places I've never hunted before, being big woods. Like there's, I mean, one house over, you know what I mean, a mile or whatever. Not literally, but I mean, it's just vast, like open.
Hmm.
Um, but I kind of lost my train of thought. Oh, you said just like transitioning, like what was different. So I will say this, like the place that I kind of grew up hunting, I kind of approached it like that. Like I grew up hunting like 80 acres surrounded by hundreds. So it's
Right.
like like in Mississippi, this place is like, if your wind's not right, you're not seeing a deer. Like that's like kind of how I grew up. It's like, I don't care if this wind's blowing straight, like you need a north wind. If it's blowing south, they're just not gonna come. Like they're gonna blow you like 400 yards deep in the wood. Not literally four, but far. You won't see them. So I think like, and obviously all deer aren't like that. Like there's some spots around Atlanta where it's like they're just not. They're just not like that. They're too accustomed to having to smell human scent. You know what I mean? Versus deer
Right.
that aren't. Like if you're in their territory, even 20 yards, they're like, no, this isn't right. And there's some places around Atlanta that just aren't like that. So getting kind of back to Ohio, the cool thing about big woods is you're really able to kind of use a large part of your deer brain. You're like, okay, this is the food source. This is buck bedding areas. This is doe bedding areas. These are ridges. These are travel routes. These are, acorns are falling over here. You have your soybeans over here. You have your standing corn. Like you can really use, what I mean, the full what I mean? All the knowledge you can have around deer to kind of like set up and put yourself in the right places. Like, I mean, you're looking at rubs, you look at rub lines, scrapes, all that. So, a lot of times with hunting like these small tracks in Atlanta, it's like you only have one small piece of what that buck is doing. And that's either stepping in front of your camera to eat some feed, the few scrapes that he's making are rubs. And if you don't have multiple permissions, you don't really know much about what that buck is doing or where he's going. And on these bigger properties, it's like you can really scout and walk and figure out like what that deer is doing and put yourself in the right place to get a shot at it. And going to Ohio, like I said, a lot of this is my buddy Dan helping out too, because like he ran cams and I mean, he grew a lot. I'm not gonna say as a hunter, but I think kind of like before he kind of met me, he wasn't really big on trail cameras, and he was like, man, he's like, man, you were right. Like I think I was just playing it old school, and when he started like kind of getting pictures and getting videos, he was like, man, I think my eyes have kind of been open in a lot of aspects, and I've really learned more about this farm this year running cameras. Not even just about you know what I mean, for them to help him in the hunt, just like how deer are traveling, and just find out more about what deer are there.
Right.
So I think that kind of like I've kind of talked a lot in circles, but just like being able to use a lot of the knowledge that you know about deer because you have that bigger track and you have access to actually walk and see, I think that's like a game changer on bigger properties compared to just one small spot. This deer is coming from that direction, and that's pretty much all I know on small tracks.
Right. And that makes it, even more impressive too, like you said. And I get why you're really proud of that Ohio one because being all the way over here in Georgia and having to, you know, I mean, it also obviously helps that, like I said, you had a good buddy kind of helping you out being up there, but still, I mean, the stress sometimes when I've got permissions right down the road for me or not far at all, it can still be so much where I'm like, I gotta get there, and I can't think about anything else. But I haven't hunted Ohio, but like I said, I feel like if I had that stress plus knowing and I can't just run 10 minutes down the road, like I gotta go to Ohio, like that's a whole other level. So how did you kind of deal with that? And I know you said 11 sits total for these 3 deer. How many sits just for Ohio alone for like actually hunting? And then how many times did you get to kind of go in before hunting and set up or scout or do things like that?
Okay, so this is the deal with Ohio is kind of like where did I want to start? I already had the week set up to where I was gonna hunt from this day to this day, and I told my wife I was like, even if I don't get one, I'm coming back this day. So I kind of had my time frame of what I was gonna hunt, and getting there, I was like, man, I'm boots on the ground, like all day sits if I have to. Like I'm coming back with one of these deer. You know what I mean? That's kind of like my mindset going into it. And I was like, I mean, obviously it's hunting, it's not killing. So there's a chance for you. I mean, you can do all day sits and everything you want, and they can still beat you. That's just hunting sometimes. But I don't know if you knew this about it, but the first day was kind of like we just kind of drove around and put some cameras on some other spots that we didn't have much surveillance on. But the main property that I wanted to hunt, which was a big, like the one I'm saying is over 1,000 acres. That's the one that I was like, I'm spending most of my time on. Because like I said, there was like 3 or 4 like 150 class deer on it, and it was just like, man, it, how do you stay, how do you stay away with that? Like
Right.
that was just
Yeah.
the odds farm. So the first day ran cameras, and that was like Sunday. And Monday it was like this was gonna be our first hunt. I shot that deer on the very first hunt, the
Wow.
very first morning. So like I said, it wasn't just like I'm just this guy who's just like reserved and sits back. It's like it just played out like that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That like I got a shot at the shooter buck the first hunt, the first morning.
Was this a morning hunt or evening?
It was a morning hunt.
Morning hunt? Okay. And now, okay, so we're in November. So again, that's kind of obviously, like I said, September, I'm kind of like, I mean, like based on what the tracker told me, I adopted that rule, like do not go in the mornings unless it's like you said, like a situation where they're coming out super late. But once you hit that late October, early November, kind of everything's game. So you go in the morning. How long are you sitting? Kind of walk us through that hunt starting from that day. Like you get in and then kind of go from there. Like how does it all unfold?
So the funny thing about this hunt is like hindsight is so 2020 because on this hunt, like there was this scrape. I was set up on this big power line. We kind of talked, me and Dan kind of talked about it the night before. Like this is what the deer are doing. This deer is showing up on this scrape a lot. It was a 10. We named him Bumpy because he had like some neural coming out and some kind of kickers coming out of his base. And that's just, I mean, what Dan named him. So I was set up. I walked in with my saddle in the dark. It was maybe like a 80-yard walk from where we parked. Walked up this ridge, set up my sticks, climbed up, got in, got set. Saw like several does, a couple small bucks, and I saw the deer that I shot like up on a ridge, maybe like 80 yards away. Uh, Grunted at him, didn't come in. Went out of sight. Saw a couple more deer, and me and Dan were talking about when we were going to get down, and we were like, man, let's meet at the truck around 11:30. And we kind of talked about before that, like, we're going to pull all day sits. I don't know. He was like, man, maybe it's not quite time for all day sits. So I was actually got down out of my stand, and I was thinking like, man, I want to get closer to where that deer crossed this power line and try to get shot at him. So I was thinking about I'm probably gonna hunt my same set in the evening, and then the next morning I'm gonna hang another set because if I don't kill him this evening, I want to be close to where he crossed that power line.
Right. Yeah.
And this deer, my buddy saw several bucks chasing does that hunt, and I actually shot this deer on the ground behind a tree. In hindsight, 2020, I just got out of stand too early because I shot him standing like 15 yards from the tree that I was in all morning. Him walking to the scrape that I was set up on all morning. So in hindsight, if it's the rut, stay in your tree. Like,
Right. So you saw this buck, you end up getting down, and then from there, what happened? Did you go climb back up, or you saw him and got back up, or you shot him from down on the ground, or
no, I saw him. He was there. He wasn't chasing the doe, but a younger buck was chasing the doe. And they walked up a ridge to me. And like as he's like walking up, I'm like hiding behind a tree.
oh, okay.
So
So you're down there on the ground, like you'd gotten down and
yeah,
you saw.
yeah,
Oh man.
down,
Okay.
down, I'm down on the ground. Thinking about where I'm gonna, hang my next set, my next move. And he like walked up to me, and the little buck is like behind him, like chasing the doe, and he just turned his head away from me. And I was like, okay, because I'm like being perfectly still at first.
Right.
And when he turned his head, I was like, that finally gave me a chance to like, okay, kind of just pull back and then shot him.
Wow.
And he ran maybe like 80 yards down into a creek, and I just like fell on the ground. I was like, I cannot believe that just happened. Like it definitely felt like a faith led moment. Like I
Yeah.
go to Ohio, hunting this thousands of acres farm, and this deer just, walks. And granted, like I said, we were running cameras. We kind of knew he was, frequenting the area a lot. We knew that was one of his
Right.
favorite scrapes that he was hitting. So that's why I was set up on it. But it's just the fact of me getting down kind of threw a twist in it. But I actually walked up on him like, I'm calm, buddy. It's like, man, I just shot him. Uh, and we walked up on him. We actually jumped him up. And this was like maybe 25 minutes after I shot the deer. And I'm like, I knew it was like double long, like perfect. Like, he was at only like 20 yards. when I shot him.
Right.
And so we got out and we gave him some time. We probably gave him like 3 hours. And then look back at the video because I shot him on. It isn't great video. I put like my GoPro on my stabilizer, but we could tell like it was behind the shoulder. So came back and he was like maybe 20 yards past where he went silent. So right
Oh,
up on the ridge that we saw him.
right. And before you, at the point you got down and all this happened, how long had you been hunting? Was it late morning by that point? How many hours would you say had
It
gone by?
was it was 11:30 when I
Okay.
shot him. Yeah, so I got down a little earlier than we had planned because I'm thinking like, man, what's my next move? You know what I mean? Like I got a first day Ohio and I got a sighting of one of the bucks that we're trying to kill, and you know what I mean. So just getting anxious, you know what I mean, and just wanting it
Right.
to happen is kind of what I'll attribute it to.
Man, that's incredible. And you can go ahead and show off this buck. And as you're showing them off, just kind of remind us what did this one score again?
So this one was 150, pretty clean 10.
Oh wow, yeah.
Broke off like a couple inches off of his brow, and that's like kind of how he got his name. You can see kind of like the bumps coming off,
Awesome.
but
Man.
really cool deer, big body. Um, Pretty similar to the Velvet 10. He just
Right, yeah.
his fours are a little longer.
Uh-huh.
He has a little bit more mass in some areas, but yeah, beat
Yeah.
him out by just a few inches.
Oh,
Yeah.
man, that's a good looking rack. And the fact that that's so cool. I mean, that's two really, really cool hunts in a row too. Not just the fact that, yeah, they're great deer, but the way they happened. And then for this one, for you to actually climb down and that happen on the ground 20 yards, like while you're thinking about, okay, this evening I'm gonna do like that's unreal. But and so from there, was your buddy, where was he at during this whole, was he kind of filming? Oh, and
So
also yeah.
So he was hunting on the same property I was, but he was maybe like 300 yards away from
Oh,
me. So we went in together and he's this way and I'm this way. So it was kind of like, I guess we planned it out, but yeah, he was like 300 yards away from me, but on the same farm.
gotcha. And the next buck we're gonna get into, I know I watched your hunt video on that one, and it was amazing and such a cool deer as well, the one we're about to get into. But for this hunt, I don't remember seeing it. Is this on the YouTube or is this something that's gonna be coming to the YouTube for the Ohio deer?
No, I'm not putting the Ohio deer on there. I mean, that was a decision that it's kind of like, man, I want to like continue to share what we do in a positive light and kind of realizing that maybe everything isn't for YouTube or isn't going to get perceived the correct way. You know how you see like guys do certain things and then just like you look at the comments and it's just like, oh, he did that. And it's kind of like, guys who just never made a mistake. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think through that, just how it kind of getting down out of the stand and it being like GoPro on the stabilizer video, I decided like this isn't gonna be um one that I'm gonna show out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I respect that. I mean, there's like that's something I'm trying to get better at myself is the whole filming while hunting. What I found is for me, ducks, it comes naturally because you just put a GoPro of some kind on your head and you're golden. Like it's all good. Um, Deer hunting, I have so much respect for channels like yours and like we said earlier, Seek One, you said one of the best you've seen at it. I agree. Like the whole adding filming to it is such a tough element that could be a whole other podcast thing in and of itself. um, Man, just like, and I know there's been plenty of stories, guys have not gotten the deer they were after because they were maneuvering that camera or trying to do something. It was even this season for me, like the one I got the first one on camera, my early September buck, but the biggest one I got October 27th, I wanted to take it, but I knew my only option that day was a little GoPro that would have been on my head, and it was a very brushy area, even where I shot him, and I didn't have a good way. Like it was one of those situations where I was in a blind, and when I'm in the blind and I have that thing on my head, it like focuses on the inside of the blind. Like it does, it doesn't, the action camera does not go out to what's outside the blind, which is what I need to see. And the only reason it worked out early September is like set it really in a sketchy way on the tip of it and somehow made it stay. I don't even know. But the whole time I was thinking this thing's gonna fall and then everything's gonna run off. And I didn't want to do that with this deer. And I honestly think even if I had, I don't think that would have been captured unless I had brought like the cameraman that day with me and they'd already been set up with a tripod and had like something where they can zoom in through brush and all that kind of stuff. But going into your third buck. So now you got this amazing, your best buck ever, early season Georgia. Then you go to Ohio, first sit, get this incredible 150 buck. And then this next buck, this third one, such a cool buck. He's got an awesome drop time. Even before we get into the story, if you just want to show him off and go into what he scored. And did you have a name for
Y-
this deer?
Yeah, I named this deer Splice. It was kind of like a
Plus.
last minute decision. Probably a few, maybe a few days before I killed him, just with like, like the what was that last season? He had, just like maybe he's like a short main beam. It was probably like 12 inches on one side, and his other side kind of looked similar to this. Like it had a big split off the G2, and everything kind of looked like this. Obviously, he didn't have a drop time, but so that's why I kind of named it with just like, kind of like a split personality
Yeah.
kind of
And
deal.
and
But
where's
he
that
scored 155.
155? Awesome. And where's that
Yeah.
drop again? If you
It's off the right, like off his right base. It's
Oh,
kind
I
of
see. Okay. I see it
like
now. Yeah.
7.5 inches.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, man, really cool deer and just really cool to look at.
Yeah,
Um,
he's man, he definitely, catches the eye. That deer is super cool, and I mean they all are, but with that drop, it kind of just adds that element of so
unique.
going into this, yeah, and going into this time, I know like first deer you were after, you didn't sit like too many times. It all worked out pretty quickly. The Ohio won one sit. I'm guessing obviously the majority of those 11 sits went into this deer right here.
No, so that deer was only 2 sits. And the others that total into the 11 were for other deer. And it's
Oh,
basically
I
just
got you.
like
I see
the
what you're
man,
saying. Yeah.
what am I gonna do? Like I'm kind of like, you know what I mean? Like none of this happened in October. You know what I mean? Like none of these deer were killed in October.
Right.
So during that time frame, it was kind of like, man, maybe this deer will show back up. It was kind of like those kind of hunts of just like, please come back. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right, yeah. Yeah, I've had a lot of
Yeah,
those. That makes sense. So
yeah.
for this deer, what was your approach? How did this one kinda come about? And for anybody, if you haven't seen it, again, SC Archer, YouTube, you need to go watch it. This is a really cool episode. But for people who haven't seen that yet, and it adds a whole other element when you actually watch it. But um, how did this one kinda come about? What was your strategy? Obviously, you're back home in Georgia, and kinda just take us from there.
So basically starting with the kind of what we talked about, like how early do you set up stands? I knew like this buck was kind of the only one from last year that I saw. Like, man, I remember that buck that like split two on one side. Like, I wonder if he's going to come back next year. And I didn't expect him to come back like that, but he definitely exceeded expectations of what I thought. But once I saw him, he walked into the camera. He's like really close to the camera, and he had the drop time on one side. So I didn't even know he had a drop time, and that was like October time frame. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, I gotta put a stand over there. So no, actually, yeah, I put a stand over there after I saw that. So I put a stand over there in October, and I had another deer that was kind of big, that I believe at times bigger than him. I was kind of looking for like, man, I want to try to get a 150 class deer in Georgia. So I was hunting another deer, or like I said, doing sits of like, please come back type deal. And then I got some more videos of this deer in November, and I was like, "Is that a drop sign?" And it's like, "Okay." And then I went in there and like set everything up, like, "Okay, this is the deer that I want to shoot. Like this deer is over 150, I believe. He has like a 7 inch drop sign." I was like, even if this deer was 130, just like I was looking for reasons for him to like jump up on to number one on the list, just because I just thought he was a cool deer. Like he just had a lot of character. He was just cool. Man, he looks like something that I've never shot before. And just off of that, I was like, man, he just got my attention. So I think I rode like one sit on him and just saw some does, didn't see him. And then I believe he daylighted the day before Thanksgiving. And I just so happened I was off Thanksgiving. Thank God. And I hunted that. I mean, anyway, I would have had mornings anyway, but I was like, I got to be in there tomorrow morning because the two times that he daylighted, uh, I think it was like once in October, once in November. No, twice in November. It was always like between 9 and 10 a.m. So I was like, okay, he's coming through this spot in late morning. And it's a spot to where like last year I had experiences where like late season, late November, and even into December, bucks were chasing does at that spot.
Right.
And it's kind of set up to where it's like a point to where like when the deer come in, they kind of funnel through, they kind of walk in, and then they come back by me. So it's just a money setup. It's a really prime setup to be able to like see the deer come through. make a decision. And then once he's in there, it's like I know he has to come back by me again. And that's kind of what happened with this hunt. There was a buck like just chasing the doe around all through the morning. And as I'm like talking, I'm like, I kind of made like a talking point to the camera just to say like, man, I don't think this doe is ready, but this buck will not leave her alone. And as soon as I was saying that, I was like, oh, here he comes, just walking down. And this deer walks all the way up to like the base of my tree, not the base of the tree, but maybe like 8 yards away from my tree, and like starts just like smelling the licking branch. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And he like whipped around and walked like he walked straight to me and then whipped around and walked straight away from me. And I like picked up my bow as he's walking off and I was like, there is no way I let this deer get to 8 yards and I didn't get a shot. And he went off and started chasing the doe. But thank God he went up into the pocket that I'm referring to. And I was like, he's got to come back. So I just kind of sat there like ready. And I was like, he's got to come back. And I was like, within like 30 yards of me. So maybe, about 3 minutes later, he comes back out of there and I'm just, sitting there ready and just stopped him and got a shot. And he went like maybe 20 yards. And then, you know how, I don't know if you had the experience of a deer kind of like just running off and then just like standing there like, what was
Mhm.
that? What happened? Oh, I don't feel good. And then it kind of fell over. That's what he did.
Right.
So it was like one of those where like saw him fall in sight. I didn't get all that on video because I was just like, after I shot, I was just like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just staring over at him. And I'm like, oh, move the camera over to him.
Right.
So all you kind of see on video, all I have on video is him kind of like just kind of flopping a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, and falling. But yeah, it would have been obviously better with the cameraman because the cameraman can stay on him and not be freaking out like I was. But
Right.
self film, I did the best I could and kind of showed,
Yeah.
what I saw.
No, it's a great video, man. It was awesome to watch that one. I think people really enjoy it, and again, just such a unique, cool deer too. But considering you've had this breakout season, are you feeling because especially like you had multiple amazing bucks this year, like your three best deer all in one season? Are you feeling any kind of pressure for next season, like a pressure you just kind of put on yourself? Just curious. I know that's something that I do to myself. I'm always competing, but with myself, not with other people. And
Yeah.
I'm like, man, like every season since I've started seems to be getting better and better. I know that can't always
Mm.
be the case, but because it's been that way, I'm like, I feel a pressure that I've already put on myself for next season. And there's a lot of great things in the works with properties and bucks that I've already got on camera. And it's like, I think because of that too, and I've seen them, and I know like there's just this pressure, man. I'm like, oh, here we go. Like, as hard as I worked this season, because like you said, there's all that work that goes in preseason through the whole summer where you're just there's so many times in the summer I'm about to pass out. I get cramps in my arms. Switching to other arm, use a machete to hack out trails. Like there's all kinds of crazy stuff in the summer, and you do all that. And I thought about all the work I put in. I'm like, crap, because I already know I'm gonna want to go harder this year, just to try to better myself. And I'm like, man, the grind, it's coming, and I love it. But at the same time, I am gonna enjoy just a minute to breathe here and do some fishing and things like that. But for you, like, how do you take that? Do you have like this pressure? Do you kind of look at it through a different mindset? How do you sort of prepare for that?
Yeah, I think I kind of definitely relate to how you put it and have like a similar mindset. I think pressure is a good thing. Like I welcome pressure, but the healthy kind. Like I think you said something like that's important. Like you're setting like goals for yourself that you want to accomplish. You're not looking at another man's trophy room and saying like I want to compete against it or I want to shoot a buck. You know what I mean? Not saying that you can't see something like man, that's a nice book. I want to kill one like that one day. But like actually competing with someone else, I think you're stepping into something that's not really healthy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I kind of like just do it with like realistic goals that I want to accomplish. You know what I mean? I mean, even if it's not realistic, I mean, hey, one day I want to shoot a 180. Will it be next year? Maybe not, but um, I still approach the season with that's a possibility. Like that next property I may get may have a 180 class deer on it. And the first step is being in the area where a 180 class deer is. And after that, it's figuring out how to get them on the ground. So, talking about pressure, I think I have definitely put a little bit on it, but it's not pressure to like oh, I gotta show people this or anything like this, or like I did this, now I gotta. It's more like, hey man, I want to, I did it this season. I'm gonna like, I'm celebrating it. I'm, proud of my accomplishment. But next year, I'm just gonna approach it with like the same mindset, set some new goals, and just try to achieve them. You know what I mean? Goals that I'll be proud of. If that's, similar deer like these, cool. If I'm blessed to, shoot another buck Just bigger than Splice. I mean, awesome. Yeah, that's kind of how I view it. Like, it's definitely, I have some goals set. Like, I wanna raise the bar a little bit, but it's stuff that's like you said, it's kind of internal. You know what I
Right.
mean? More so than just like competing, with another guy who's doing something else.
For sure. Yeah. And that's the thing too. I do believe that too. Like the pressure is a good thing in anything, whether it's sports, singing, anything like pressure is what pushes people to do their best. So it's a great thing. But man, it's just like especially when you have a breakout season or just like the best season you've had, just with yourself. It's like that grappling, like, man, I don't want to just come out and be mediocre next year or take a step backwards. I want to go forward more. And
Yeah.
then you just think about all the work that went into just making what happened happen. You're like, oh, like I'm gonna have to do more of that and like take it to another level. So it's like, man, it's it's kind of be grueling, but it's so worth it. Like in those moments where you're behind that deer and like it doesn't feel real. That's what I love about it too, is like the whole hunt, everything's a rush leading up to it, but once you're behind that animal and you're thinking about how all the hard work came together to this
It
moment,
slows
you're just
down.
yeah, you're so thankful to God. You're just like, I can't even with the hard work, it's like I still can't believe this happened, but that's when it all becomes worth it. Like all the stuff, almost passing out in the summer, probably dangerous situations we put ourselves into sometimes, but that's when
Yeah.
it becomes all worth it. So Jordan, thank you so much for being on the show. And everybody out there, again, if you have not seen some of these videos, you need to go check it out. SE Archer on YouTube and J Chris Hunts on Instagram. Keep up with what he's doing. I think you're going to see if or not some fishing stuff coming up and all that. But next season, we're going right back after it. So thank you again, man. Those are three incredible bucks. Um, just unbelievable, and I appreciate you showing them off for everybody here today to kinda let people see what you got. Because man, those are phenomenal.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you for having me. I appreciate you just taking out the time to let me jump on the podcast. And man, I'm loving what you're doing. Love your podcast. You got something really special going. I'm wishing you all the best going forward.
Thanks, man, I appreciate it, and I know we're gonna be looking forward to, keeping up with what you got going on next season and just kinda seeing the journey continue from there. Because what you're doing is awesome too, and, what I love about your channel is you can really feel and you do a good job documenting this, like, you can feel the grit and the grind, like, the stuff I was explaining. That's where I need to improve is showing that, like, where I'm about to pass out and the stuff. But you're doing all that and you're showing the drive, you're showing the ups, the downs, the highs and the lows, and I think people can really connect to that. So, keep doing what you're doing. I know we're gonna love to keep up with it more next year, season 2, and thank you again for being on the show.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. You have a good one.